All right, we are live. Hi, everybody. Sign off in the comments where you're from. I'm here with Bart Darfler. We're just gonna hold off a bit until everyone comes in. Sound off in the comments what organization you work with, what part of the country you're from. I'd like to, get to know everybody and, answer some great questions. So I'm Chad. I work with DipJar. I've hopefully spoken with a good amount of you about your nonprofit and about how you fundraise. I like to make sure that you all are using DipJar and fundraising to the best of your ability. I make most of the videos you see on the site and, love, seeing the newest, best way to use DipJar and, help you guys fundraise overall. Hi, Kelly from Safety Harbor, Humane Society of the Pinellas. That's awesome. And Tracy from the National Rowing Foundation. Peter from Victoria, BC in Canada. Stacy from Feeding South Dakota, Sioux Falls. I hope that I pronounced that correctly. Everyone's here. That's awesome. We're just going to wait a little bit for more people to roll in, but turnout's looking pretty good. Molly from the Music Maker Relief Foundation in Hillsborough. Hi, Lonnie from General Needs. Hey, Bart. Bart, say hi to a couple people.
Well, I don't have your list, Chad. But
Bart, if you go to the chats on the side, you can see everyone coming in. So it's the second button on the top. There you go.
You can tell from my hair color, I'm not as technically advanced as you are.
That's great. Yeah, you're doing great, Bart. So if you go to the top on the chats, you can see everyone coming in. But I can always read those chats to you. We got Mary from Notre Dame College Prep. Lori Lynn
Mary.
from Cleveland, Ohio. We have Mary from Max Giving in Boise, Ohio. Big fan of Max Giving. You guys are great over there. All right. I think we got a good enough people in. I'm sure more people are going to trickle in as we go. But, we're a couple minutes past 12, so I'm going to get started. So I'm here with Bart Darfler. Bart's done charitable work his entire life. He grew up with his father, Gene, working as a benefit auctioneer. And he's learned the ropes working for free for 10 years, doing over 20 events a year. And Bart now has over 28 years of experience as a benefit auctioneer, running events for hundreds of nonprofits. He also has sat on the board for 2 charitable organizations. So he knows the ropes, behind the scenes of the nonprofit, not just in the event world. Let's see. So Bart he now runs his own company, Darfler Benefit Auctions and Consulting. Bart, gave you an awesome intro.
Yes,
how's it going over there in Chicago?
Well, we have a beautiful day here in Chicago. I'm just thrilled to have so many people from around the country joining us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Thursday. I'm looking forward to drilling down. We got a lot of good nuggets to share with these people, and we want to definitely take your questions at the end. You can type them in at any time, and Chad is more or less going to facilitate that. But you don't have to take notes. This is something else I want to take. A few times I'm going to reference maybe taking notes. But you can always come back and visit the DipJar website, and this will be available to you. So if you want to circle back, by all means. But we're going to jam pack. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to this. So, Chad, thank you.
So, Bart, I'm going to get your slide presentation started, and I'm going to dip out. Everybody, I'll be in the comments answering questions about some fundraising stuff that I can answer, and feel free to type some questions as you go for Bart to answer at the end. All right, slide presentation ready to go. And all right, here we go. And I'm going to dip out. See everybody.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Well, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, having done these 10 years all gratis and doing 20 of them a year, I really felt it was worthwhile to go to meetings and try and help these organizations by getting ideas from other organizations, what they might do to improve the results of their hard efforts. So today we're going to talk basically a common sense approach to taking your fundraising results to a higher level. And as Chad alluded, that's my father, Gene Darfler, Broadway stage trained actor, acted in the 60s, great stage presence. But for 27 years, he donated his time to Little Friends here in Naperville, did their Bid for Kids auction, and I started training with him. But my father, not only would he do this gratis for 27 years, but he'd buy 2 tables and he'd fill them with moneyed bidders who spent a lot of money there. And he'd also pay for the tuxedo rental for 4 other auctioneers because they would sell 85 items in a night. That's where I got my start. And in 1990, I went to the Mason City College of Auctioneering and completed the training there. And I was also, as Chad mentioned, March of Dimes, Naperville United Way, Via Santa Maria. I was a board member of those three nonprofits, and I also served on a few different organizations here in Naperville. Attended benefit auction specialist training. If you haven't heard of a BAS, it is a designation given by the National Auctioneer Association, and I'll tell you, we have a lot of talented benefit auctioneers around the country that are really specialists, and this training was invaluable to me, and I still go for ongoing education. And this is just some logos. I'm not going to sit on this. These are logos of organizations I've helped over the last couple of years. This was an event inside of corporate headquarters. That's me. And I want to comment before we get into the meat of the presentation. I first saw DipJar, ladies and gentlemen, at One Hope United's fundraising event. It was a golf outing, and I'm going to reference that golf outing a little bit later in the presentation. But I saw this item here. You can see it in the lower center part of your screen. It's got the $20 thing on it. I said, what is this? And while it may or may not work, and I'd love to hear stories if you've got them about how you utilized these DipJars at your gala events or your golf outings. I see a tremendous potential. In fact, this slide I've used in presentations I've made to nonprofits in Florida and Indiana and Illinois. I just think it's a brilliant idea. And Chad, of course, can answer more questions about that, but I sure appreciate him having me here. Here's another shot of the DipJars and logos and so forth. But what a great point of revenue for your organization to make sure nobody leaves whatever event you're hosting, whether it be a golf outing, a 5K, a 10K, it might be a food truck gathering. But what a great opportunity for people to, on an impulse, you queue in the amount you want to donate. Not they don't, you do as the organization, but it might be $5, $10, $20, whatever. And people, if they're moved to do so, it's a great source of income. Anyway, thank you so much to DipJar. Now, it goes without saying, but we're going to say it anyway. We have a great turnout for today's call. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. Thank you. And we've got people from a wide strata of the nonprofit world here to gain a little bit of knowledge, take away a nugget or two. Let me say this. First of all, I'm humbled and honored that you're here. And I'm grateful to DipJar for helping us facilitate this information for your use. That being said, there are always exceptions to the rule. And how you do things doesn't, if I say something contrary to the way you do it, absolutely, that's no reason to change. And I'm happy to talk to any one of you about how you do your events and what have you. But don't discount what we're sharing with you today if, in fact, you do something different. Because the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'd ask you to please just keep an open mind as we go through this. I hope we get some good information for you. Mid-June of this year, Giving USA and the Giving Institute put together this chart. First time ever, the charitable giving in the United States exceeded the $400 billion mark. Now, you can circle back to this and look at it later in more detail. If you didn't see it, you can also go to one of these companies and get the information. But they break it out, and we're going to reference some of this information here. But it's fascinating to me, and we'll talk about some of these numbers later. $400 billion. We're very blessed to live in a generous country where people are so giving and helping of others. Let's talk about the summary today. You may have seen this before if you've attended one of my presentations, but I definitely drilled down on it. MIPs, what are those? Then we're going to talk about the three-legged stool and making sure that stool doesn't wobble. And then we're going to talk about ROE, maybe something you haven't thought of before. Now, those of us that fly, whenever you land somewhere, and I thought this was kind of humorous, thank you for flying with us. We hope you enjoyed giving us the business as much as we enjoyed taking you for a ride. Now, that's kind of funny, but the point of the slide is, when you land somewhere, you're taking a jet plane and you've landed at your destination, they'll say, welcome. They come over to the speaker in the plane and they say, welcome to Chicago. We're so thrilled you fly with us. We know you have a choice, but we want to thank you for flying with us. Well, it's much like the people in the room that come to whatever type of fundraising event that you host. You want to make sure that they leave happy and they come back next year. And this is all about building relationships and making sure your nonprofit is the one. So from the first save the date announcement you folks send out to the personal thank yous that come post event and everything in between, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about those people in that room, those people coming to your event, and how vitally important that we show our gratitude. I know that's a kind of a buzzword now, and it's always been part of our presentation, but we really want to take care of the people that help us achieve our mission. And I'm going to say this, it's not just about the money. I know we measure dollars, I get that. But ladies and gentlemen, that room is filled with people who you can build advocacy with, potential board members. I think serving on the Naperville United Way board and the Via Santa Maria, we were always trying to identify people that could fill a role, if you will, whether they had a special skill and expertise, a professional skill, or even just the fact that they had the wherewithal and the desire to be a strong advocate and help raise money. But in that room, I don't care if you got 100 or 500 people, you have a tremendous opportunity not only to raise a lot of money, but you've got potential sponsors, potential donors, and of course your volunteers. And it's more than just the money. So you want to put on a great event, and obviously we do, but we want to plan it out so that we achieve that. So we come to our first survey. I'm going to ask you, please, those of you that host an event, how many guests do you host at your largest annual event? And there are the numbers there. Please make a selection. And I think Chad is with us, handling the back office, if you will, or behind the stage or the screen. And he's going to share with us the results of that. And let's see here. Okay, there's the three-legged stool. I'm going to go back. And Chad will jump in if we definitely want to share the results of this with you. Here we go. There he is.
I'll just jump in. I'm not sure if you can see. So right now, I think everyone commenting on the poll and submitting the poll can see. But right now, we got about 7% and 6% are about less than 100. 6% the same, about 101 to 200. And you got a whopping 39% from 200 to 400, 22% from 400 to 600, 11% from 600 to 800, and 11% for too many to count. So it's pretty, and it's getting pretty even, around 11% through most of them, at 20% around 400 to 600, and 35% around 200 to 400. So it's cool to see, everything's pretty even.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chad. And I guess you folks can see that. I can't on my screen, but it sounds like the bulk of them are between 200 and 600. The largest percentage. Would that be accurate if I heard you right?
Yep, it's about 50% is around those two, and then
okay, and that's really your sweet spot. But we're going to talk a little bit about growing your annual event, because that's part of the goal. Obviously, is we always want to outgrow our venue if we can. Thank you, Chad. So, second topic of today's presentation, the three-legged stool. And as you can see from this diagram or this photograph of the stool, it's got those cross braces. Each leg of that stool is connected to the other one. And in that belief that we want to have that stool sit flat, be solid, be supported, each one of those legs represents a part of your successful event. Those three groups are audience development, filling the room with the right people, if you will. Your revenue centers, that's anything in the room that makes you a profit. It might be raffles, it might be a live auction, a paddle race, silent auction, your gate, your tickets. And then event management, that's everything in between. That's everything from how you set up your room, how you handle your invitations, how you handle your response, your thank yous, and everything else comes under those. So those three legs, we want them to work together. Talk about first audience, or rather advocate development. It's vitally important that we get the right people in the room, and advocate development is the number one factor. I do presentations to clients on audience or advocate development to their boards or major influencers of their organization, and we've seen tremendous results by the appropriate way to identify, engage, and personally invite people to attend your event. It's got a huge influence. We'll talk about that in just a second. Case in point, there's this Collier County outside of Chicago called Kane County and CASA, which is court-appointed special advocate. King County. I've had the honor and great privilege of working with them for a number of years. And we're going to look at a chart and talk about audience development and growing your event. Looking left to right, the green represents net dollars raised from 2011 through 2018. I'm just going to touch on these briefly. And the blue, the light blue line represents, and of course these dollars are in hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the blue line represents attendance. And I think what's fantastic, and I got to give a shout out to Gloria Kelly at King County. She's the executive director and a good friend. And I was blessed that she was happy to share these numbers with me because they have experienced what I would consider to be pretty enviable success. And she, to her credit, she gives a great amount of credit and props to her board for helping them to grow their event. So let's just look at the blue line real quick. We'll go through these. In 2011, they were in a country club and they had 275 people there. The next year, they had 420. The next year, 475. And then in 2015, they had 650. 2016, 700. And then 2017 and 18, they capped out the Q Center in St. Charles, Illinois at 820 attendees. But I also want to share, and that's great because their dynamic board and selling tables and getting people, I mean, who wouldn't love to have these numbers? But let's look at the numbers. My first experience was in 2011 with them. This is net dollars from this specific event, 139,000. Next year was 208,000, the next 235. 2014, they eclipsed 300,000 net, and they hovered right by that at 301 in 2015. 2016, they were at 331,000. In 2017, 335, and bless their hearts, they eclipsed the $400,000 net income level from this one event they host the first Saturday in March. And here again, it's engaging your board, but it's also working your audience. And this is hats off to them. Thank you for letting me share that. Next slide. How can you do advocate development? Well, you want to do targeted outreach. You want to look at your data. And those of you folks with CRMs, or if you're using a mobile bidding company or what have you for your big galas, there's a lot of data that can be manipulated and researched. Everyone gets to play. What I mean by that is from your board, your associate board, your volunteers, everybody needs to be aware of advocate development and how vitally important that role it plays. A lot of organizations that have, if you will, a larger army will set up an advocate development team where they're focused. And sometimes I've seen this more come out of the associate board where, somebody makes a presentation, we develop a summary and a game plan, a strategy for the AD team, and they make sure that information is regularly communicated throughout the organization. And finally, and I can't emphasize this enough, get real personal. Again, if you're using a CRM, there's gold in that data, ladies and gentlemen. And I really believe that differentiating yourself in a very competitive world, you want to do things that people remember you for. And that means sending thank yous, making phone calls, getting your board engaged. And I'll highlight that in a little bit more. Getting your volunteer board members to make phone calls to major donors. It's hugely impactful. So you got to know your audience. The second leg of that three-legged stool is revenue centers, anything that makes money. And you got to know your audience. You want to know what appeals to them. So you want to poll them. If you don't do a survey already, I'd recommend you do after your major fundraising event. And I'm going to tell you how to tie that in with something else that's very beneficial. But you want to research past performance metrics and what was appealing. If you have records that tell you that certain things in one of your profit centers did not do well, then just like a grocery store or a department store or what have you, change it, get it out, and do something different that makes you better money. I want to tell you a brief story, and I think this is very important. The National Auctioneers Association hosts an annual what's called a benefit auction summit. Typically, it's held the last weekend in August, and this year it was hosted in St. Pete Beach. And I've attended 3 out of the last 4. And what I love about them is it is a collection of benefit auctioneers, people who really focus on this genre, if you will. And they all come together and they share ideas. Hey, I use this, or I use that, or this worked great, or here's a thought. And the National Auctioneer Association and the committee put together a great program. So here's a quick shot of this, 2 weeks old. This was taken. And what you see on your screen right now are some of the best darn benefit auctioneers throughout North America. We were represented in Canada. We had a bunch from all over the country. And these are the top benefit auctioneers, and I'm proud. I'm very honored to have been with these good folks. They're doing a great job helping organizations increase their margin and improve their mission as a result. But anyway, the highlight of it was this lady on your screen right now, Penelope Burke. I'm guessing a lot of you people have heard of her. If you haven't, and if you are taking notes, this is somebody's name and the name of her company, Cygnus, that you want to write down and circle back to. I'm going to talk a little bit about her presentation. Now, when she spoke on the second day of our conference, I wrote 11 pages of notes, okay? And I write pretty small, and I was so impressed. In fact, this is the only presenter at the Benefit Auction Summit that received a standing ovation after her discussion. And she is someone, I genuinely believe, in your career and for your organization's mission, this is somebody who you want to know. She is very, and I'm going to just hit on a few of the highlights of her presentation. She said, now, she comes from a human resources background, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but she's got a very impressive background, but she works big data numbers and to the tune of 40,000 surveys of donors to find out information, what keeps them circling back to your organization. I'm going to read a question here. Once you started initially giving, what is the reason you continue to give and maybe increase your giving year after year? In other words, what does it take to motivate your donors to give again? And the interesting statistic that came out of, and I'm going to share some key points. 66% who give once don't give again a second time. And that comes back on us as fundraising people, nonprofit professionals. We got to find a way to make that number higher. And that survey, that question I read earlier, the answer was, the collective answer, if you will, is acknowledge promptly my donation in a meaningful way. And she went on and drilled down on those things, what made it meaningful and answering promptly. And I've heard time and time again about making a point to give a thank you. For example, she recommended that, again, volunteer board members, when a donor would hear from a volunteer board member, even a voicemails were almost impactful as talking to the person live. 95% said they'd give again. And of that, 39% of those people to give again would give higher gifts the next time because they want to know how much their donation is appreciated. And they also want to know what you're doing with that donation, that gift, that investment in your mission. Now, basically, she also, in Penelope, she did a great job, but she mentioned 3 kinds of board members. You may recognize some of this. She said there's every board maybe has one. It'd be great if you have 2 that are absolutely unafraid to ask anyone for money. And then you have strategic leaders. These are the people that are seeing the future and planning the direction of your organization, how you're going to go. And those people are the perfect ones for making these phone calls and reaching out to donors. And then, of course, every nonprofit, and I experienced it too, had someone that was just unable. It wasn't in their DNA to ask anyone for donations or for support and advocacy. And this, what I'm sharing with you and what she showed us is she's got a book coming out. They're doing discount on this now, and I don't get anything if you buy the book. But I really think in the development world, this is a game changer because the information in here is so powerful. But in this book, and the reason I went to the slide is there's a calling script that she provides for that third category of board members that just are really uncomfortable. She provides a script. Keeping great records of the people you reach out to and so forth are vitally important. She said initially donors give ridiculously low donations or gifts because they're testing you and they want to know how you respond. And one of the best strategies I want to share with you today, please take note of this. She recommended that right after your major event, whenever you hold it, part of that planning includes sending out an invitation to register for next year's event, because it's still going to be fresh in their mind. And quite frankly, you don't ask for money in that at all. You say what a great time everybody had and how terrific the experience was. We're thrilled to have you there, and we'd love to have you sign up. And she has seen organizations who do this sell out their fundraising events 6 months before the event. So if there's not, I don't know that there's a better time than after you send people away happy from your event to say, hey, this is going to be our date for next year, and we'd love for you to sign up. You don't have to pay anything now, but we want you to put you on the list. Thanks so much for your support, and don't ask for money. Number one reason that Penelope cited, that donors stop giving is being asked too many times, which I thought was fascinating. And I want to share that 36% of donors held their philanthropy giving back last year, sending a signal to your organization that they want to trust you and know what you're doing with your donation amounts. But donors like to be acknowledged for their gifts. And 52% of donors in 17 said that they give more in the coming year. 52%. What I thought was fascinating, 25% in 2018, her survey said that they would give. That's more than half less than 2017's numbers that would give again. She had a great presentation on millennial giving and how extraordinarily philanthropic they are, and how they want to be involved and do as much as they can. And I want to suggest that having a board, an associate board of millennials, letting them lead your AD team, I think that's a great idea. They're very loyal, they're very philanthropic, obviously, and they need engagement. They want to be heard, and they want to hear they want to know that what they're suggesting or involved with makes a difference or is being heard. So, moving on, your fundraising event, I recommend you focus on the 3 E's, regardless of within the house or within the venue itself. Focus on the 3 E's. You want to have your profit centers or your revenue centers be engaging, be entertaining, and don't miss the opportunity to educate those people in the room about all the great things your mission accomplishes. What are the great things, and what are the results of the great things that you do? So the 3 E's, keep that in mind. And we're going to come up to another, and I'm going to ask you folks, if you wouldn't mind, Chad will jump back in after you answer. How many live auctions do you host if you do a live auction? 1 to 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20. Go ahead, Chad.
So, and Bart, let's see if I can get you seeing this. If you click the third button down on polls, you'll be able to see the results as they come in. You're going to try that. Okay. But right now it's coming in. Everyone's at 25%. It's pretty even across the board.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to see it. I'll circle back and take a look at it.
No problem.
I'm more interested in, can you give me the numbers 5 to 10, 11 to 15?
Sure thing. So right now it's still going back and forth a lot, but we got 25%, 11 to 15, and about 23. Oh, it's dropping a little bit more people going to 1 to 4. But about, I'm sounding like you, Bart, talking real fast, like an auctioneer. So about 25%, 11 to 15, about 20%, 16 to 20, and a whopping 47%, 44% around there for 1 to 4. Okay,
and that's great. That's great. I think you're one thing we all need to thank you, Chad, very much. One thing we all recognize is that, if you have a room, let's say the sweet spot is 300 people, and you have 10 live items. Well, that means that 280 of those people are going to go home without a live auction item. And that's fine, because the live auction, if you're selling the right things, if you've got the right things in your live auction, you can make a lot of money. But the idea is you want to engage, entertain, and educate while we're doing it. We had a great conversation earlier this week with an organization in Indiana where they send their constituents to camps where like people are at a summer camp where they get counseling and what have you. And we're going to sell an opportunity for one of our guests at their fundraiser to go to the camp themselves and observe the nonprofit in action. So that's tying your mission in with the live auction, which I thought that was brilliant. Anyway, so thank you for filling that out and being a part of this. Next slide. Within the revenue centers, whether we're trying to get acquisitions for live or silent auction, I want to touch on this real quick. There are 5 different things: exclusive, unique, experiential is bold, because that's the key thing today. People don't necessarily need more stuff. That's not a reason not to have a live auction, because there are great experiential things that you can have in your live auction. They just want to be a part of it. Travel is huge. And make sure, specifically whether you do a Dutch raffle or a silent auction or a wine pull, whatever it may be, beautifully packaged, beautifully displayed. Now, turnkey, what that means is if I buy that chef's dinner, everything is taken care of. The only thing I need to think about is who I'm going to invite. So you want to make it turnkey, make it simple, like they could not get it anywhere else but at your event. Now, revenue centers, I don't care what it is in the room, you should pre-promote your items before your event, like voting is done in Chicago. What that means, they say in Chicago, they vote early, they vote often. And that's what we want to do with yours. In every social media touch, I know a lot of organizations will put their revenue centers up on their website or create a link just to keep people fired up, give them a reason to look. A lot of times people want to see what you're going to sell in the live auction. If you can get a nice photograph up there somewhere where they can take a look at each live auction item offering, they show up, they're ready to bid, they're excited. Absolutely compelling photos and videos, however you're representing it. We're going to drill down on that one here too. So in brief, if you've got 5 or more live items, I recommend you do the live auction before the paddle raise. If you've got 1 to 4, do the live auction after. You want to have a balance so your live auction items appeal to each large segment of your audience. And here are a few things that are popular. Long weekend vacations. Where do your donors like to go? Sporting events, of course. Consignment trips. Those wow bucket list kind of things that you may not have the wherewithal to find on your own. And whether it be a trip for a couple or a trip for a group, which I call a syndicate, where people combine or pool their money and you make more money off that. Again, experiential is big. And your visual complement has got to be engaging, entertaining, and educational. And that's what we're going to drill down on. Two main features of your event management. We've gone to that third leg. High quality audio and sound. If they can't hear you, they'll tune you out. And engaging visuals. The most important thing for your organization is quality sound amplification. Now, a lot of venues don't offer this, but it's worth the investment, because if people can't hear you, they will tune you out. Or if you're monotone, if they can't hear your video with your very compelling message, they will tune you out. Or they'll start talking and distract from other people. So we want to make sure from the back rafters to the front row, everyone can hear clearly and be engaged. Vitally important. Sound is your most important component as far as your and now visuals. And we're going to run through this quick. Ladies and gentlemen, a visual complement to live auction. And this is where benefit auctions are a lot different than a cattle auction, a estate sale, or what have you. Every other kind of auction, you as an auctioneer or organization are paid based on volume. Okay? It's not how many items you sell. It's selling each one for the most you can get. And a visual complement is so vitally important, because people don't bid impulsively in a live auction for a charity. They're evaluating whether or not this is something that not only can they afford, but is this something they really want to do. And typically people will spend more for something they'd like to do. And what we're doing is with the visual complement, we're selling it. So this is the first slide, and I'm going to make this available to anybody that sends me an email via my site. This is the first slide in my PowerPoint template that I share with every organization. What you see is basically the template for a winning presentation. The top banner is a catchy item title. Then you have, and this is vitally important, 1 photo per slide, but multiple slides per item. And then at the bottom, you have a banner for the donor. Here we're acknowledging the donor. And if you have multiple slides, you can thank multiple donors in a packaged item. Vitally important. Here's an example, Hawaiian Getaway. Takes up the whole screen. People in the back can see how just wonderful the view is from this dining room table. You can lift these pictures from Airbnb or whatever organization you're getting. Somebody's donating it. They may have photographs, but vitally important, we get compelling. This shot is the Hacienda Beach Club in Cabo San Lucas. And as you can see, this is a template example. And in the donor section, those of you who have good sponsors, you might consider asking them if they wouldn't sponsor your consignment trips, your your bucket list getaways. And we would put their name up there. And then for the consignment, you folks would get everything. And we also acknowledge the generous donation. By the way, in January, my family was at this location. It was incredible. And you can ask me more about that some other time. One thing I do recommend, nothing wrong with having text on your slides. This was actually from an event last November of last year, Montana Dream Vacation. And each bullet talks a little bit about what you get. Now, this trip was just for 2 people. The Spacious Log home can comfortably fit an additional 6 to 8 people for $450 per night. They threw in some miles and they had an expiration date. That's fine because the auctioneer or someone is going to be describing this item. But so much more compelling is photographs like this, the sunset over the mountains. In this particular event, we had a few people in the room that loved to fly fish, and they weren't together. So we wanted them competing against each other. Well, the Montana Sporting Club, they've got some of the best fly fishing in the world. So we wanted to feature that. Here again, knowing your audience. And who wouldn't, if you love to fish, love that shot? Look at those guys. They're just happy as can be. That's a memory maker. And if you're showing multiple slides that fit your audience's desires, you're going to make more money. You're going to get that one more bid that's vitally important. Nice shots of people out on that beautiful range in Big Sky Country. And how about this? Family shot, baby just getting acquainted with a horse for the first time and having a ball. Now, something else I do with slides from time to time, that I set them up for a little comedic relief. It's just to keep everybody engaged. So in this particular case, I've already completed the bidding. I've gotten a lot of money. And I'm about done, down to my last few bidders. And I say, ladies and gentlemen, you may not be aware, but those of you who are going to the Montana Sporting Club, by golly, they have one of the best trail bosses, one of the most revered trail bosses, world famous, as a matter of fact, going to be there. Take care, make sure you have a great time. We got a shot of that guy. And then sure enough, they bring up Curly from City Slickers, who was a tough, ornery son of a gun. But he brings a laugh from the audience and maybe play a little bit of music. That gets them engaged. Sporting events are great. Action shots are great. But multiple slides, action shots, why don't you show them? Like here, I did a presentation in Indianapolis. What a great shot of the stadium filled with people. How exciting. A lot of excitement at Lucas Stadium. Here's a slide that you should use. Show the people where they're going to be seated. If you got great seats and you need to get that one more bid, if you look at this slide that we have up now, below the field is the cold side of the field, and just below that and to the left is a football that shows where those seats are located. And I guarantee you, if I can show you what great seats, oh my God, you're right behind the bench. You're almost at the 50-yard line. You're going to have great seats. It's the idea they get one more bid. Here's a shot of me working an event where we were selling Blackhawk tickets. And we showed them that. And by golly, I'll tell you, you show people if you got great seats where they're going to be part of it. Now, I like this slide because while we're selling it, we're saying, okay, these were Blackhawks tickets on the ice, right on the glass. And it's definitely, people are thinking, oh gosh, yeah, I can bid one more time. Let's do that. Here's another example. Chicago is a great place because a lot of people with motorcraft donate them to nonprofits. If you have an opportunity to do that, an afternoon or sunset cruise is a great thing. This is a shot of the Chicago skyline from Lake Michigan. And here's a shot of the boat. And we've got the name of the donor on it. And we call the item Ahoy Mateys. And there's a big craft. I think it was for 8 people. And we show them that you can go up the Chicago River and see some of the most beautiful architecture in downtown Chicago on this sunset cruise. And on Wednesdays and Saturdays, by golly, we have a fireworks show. What a great way to end your thing. And then I say, and ladies and gentlemen, you may not be aware of this, but we happen to have one of the best first meets you're ever going to want to see working this cruise, this sunset cruise with you. Do we have a shot of that guy? And then we bring up a shot of you know who and play the theme music from Gilligan's Island. It brings a laugh and keeps people involved. And that rolls us into our third and final survey. Ladies and gentlemen, please answer this question. When do you slate your special appeal? Before the live auction, the middle of the live auction, or after?
So that poll should be live.
Or you don't conduct a fund to need, which I hope you do.
All right, slowly trickling in. All right, a couple entries for after the auction, middle of the auction, going back and forth. And so far, no one for before the auction.
That's interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, at the Benefit Auctioneer Summit 2 weeks ago, we talked about that at length in our meeting. And here again, benefit auctioneers that are doing this all over the country. And a lot of them said, hey, you're mission centric. Do your paddle raise before the live auction. Everybody in the room is there to support your cause. And some said, well, that may cannibalize or hurt your live auction. But as I said earlier, if you've got 5 or more items, do the live auction first. If you've got 5 or 4 or less live auction, do your paddle raise first. That's just my opinion. But I'm happy to talk to any of you about that. And this is why you want to work with a professional benefit auctioneer, because they've seen it and they can talk to you about the pluses. Finally, thank you, Chad.
Yep.
Let's talk about the fund to need and the plea or the ask. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking very frankly, the power of your plea or ask, which is the 3.5 to 5 minutes, 7 minutes that precedes actually asking people to make straight donations to your cause. You want to craft that using the 3 C's. Make it concise, make it compelling, and by all means, make it celebratory. Concise means 3 to 5 minutes in length. I'm sure we've all been at events where the plea itself, whether it's a video or a testimonial, they carry on and it goes for 10 or 15 minutes. Well, you lose audience-wide participation. And your paddle raise typically is a mob mentality kind of thing. You make people feel good because you tell them what you're going to do with their donation. And by golly, at the next year, you're going to tell them how great you did with it. But you want audience-wide participation. So you want to make it concise. You want to make it compelling, obviously. I'm sure many of you do that. But the power of how successful your fund to need is depends on sharing a moving message or story that will highlight your mission's core values, your number one priority, perhaps, that resonates with your guests. A story that elicits empathy and then ultimately shows success that's central to your mission. And then finally, you want to have it celebratory. These words in here, I think, are so powerful. Look at what we were able to achieve thanks to you. I love this line. I've seen organizations use this, and it's so powerful. Because of you, we were able to achieve this. Make a difference there and change that. We couldn't do it without you. And isn't that worth celebrating? That is so powerful, so powerful. I hope you'll use that to your advantage. Your slide, if you're doing visuals for your for your paddle raise, fund to need, special appeal, tell them what you're going to do with the money as best you can. This is for One Hope United, $500 level of giving. This is at their golf outing I did where I first saw DipJar. Your $500 donation could sponsor a field trip for 10 high school students, helping them to discover their own leadership potential. Ladies and gentlemen, we raised over $20,000 at this level of giving with matching money, with about 140 people in the room. Very powerful. Anyway, so you've been all great. I appreciate it. Now, I'd love to answer any questions you may have. Chad, you're going to handle that for us. And
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening while we're getting them in there. You go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, Bart, you are the man. This was an amazing webinar. And, I think you get jam-packed with information. And, of course, people will have this replay on our site afterwards. And, I'm available. A lot of people on our site are available to talk about, any DipJar questions you have. But we're going to get started right now with Emily's question. Bart, this might be better something for you, but I could also chime in. When is it better to stick to the classic ask or presentation that people expect? And when is it worth taking a risk and trying something new for fundraising efforts?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'll let you dive in on that in a second, Chad. But I want to say this. Sure. When I work a fund to need, I often run a couple ideas. You can do it a couple different ways. You can have a matching money. You can do what I call a champion ask. And other auctioneers say they go fishing. So in a traditional paddle raise, You may start because you know somebody's going to raise their paddle at $5,000 or $2,500. You may say, you've had that moving plea. You've got to do that before you ask them to make a donation. But maybe you go fishing or you do your champion ad. Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting at $2,500, but I'm looking for some champions in the room that can give more than that. You might be 5,000, it might be 50,000. I'd ask you please to raise your bid paddle now, and you tell me where we're going to raise that bar. We're going to set that bar. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had great success with the champion ask, and a lot of benefit auctioneers speak to that. Other ways to do it, and I think if you don't do a paddle raiser fund to need, you're letting money walk out the door, and that's not good. Chad, go ahead and share your thoughts on that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I think we talked about earlier about how to incorporate DipJar into paddle raisers, and I think that's awesome. But, Emily, it's just a matter of, and like it's also what Bart said earlier, be creative, be energetic, be exciting. In my personal opinion, don't, at the same time, keep doing what works. If it works one year, do it the next year, but then add something else, try something small and experiment. Maybe it's not at your biggest event in the year, but maybe it's like a medium-sized, a small event. And you say, oh, wow, like this one small thing gave us all these donations or all these contacts or everyone said they loved it. Try it at your big event next year. So it's always good, trialing it here and there. Me personally, I think it's always great to keep doing the things you're still doing, but, try something big and see what happens. Take a big risk. Why not? Because people love things new, and it's what, keeps getting your donors to come back year after year. Emily, I saw you had another question, but we're going to skip to Richard first, who just asked a question. Bart, this is more so for you. You polled about attendance and auction items. What is your experience for best numbers in attendance and auction items?
Well, that's a good question. There are a few different answers to that. First of all, I think the sweet spot, you want to have a lot of people like that. That example we gave earlier with Costa County, they're netting over 400,000 when the first year they were netting 167. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive increase. But for me personally, when I work an event, I love an event that's got anywhere from 200 to 500 people, and I bring ringmen or spotters, and I bring clerks, and I train people and so forth to work with the crowd, because getting that one more bid is important. Venue is so important because, and here's a tip that I learned at the benefit auction specialist training: pick a room where everybody is in the room and all your revenue centers are in the same room. Don't make them go out to another room to bid on a silent auction or to buy a raffle ticket. The only reason somebody should leave your room where you're sharing your mission and the great accomplishments and so forth, the only reason they should leave that room is maybe to go use the bathroom, right? So make sure your venue, make sure your sound is excellent, have your visuals ready to go, but make sure you can put all your profit centers, if possible, in the same room. Because again, we're all here together believing in your mission, advocates for your mission, and sharing an opportunity. We don't want people going off in different places if we can avoid it. Now, smaller events, that's a different story. And I think smaller events definitely have their place in an annual fundraising move or strategy. Thank you for the question, David.
All right. So another question from Emily. If a donor is disappointed or doesn't have the connection they were expecting met, what are good ways to rebuild that connection and trust? Not sure if you have anything for there, Bart.
I don't. I mean, I've been in sales most of my life, and at times I've had to circle back to people I've lost touch with. And humility, I know a lot of us, me personally, not humble enough, often enough. So a little humility goes a long way when you say, I'm sorry, I haven't been in touch, but you're still important to us. I think, and I'm not selling her book again. I get nothing for that. I just thought it was great, and I loved her presentation. That is probably I'm sure that book probably has something more eloquent and simple to follow if you were to research Penelope Burke's book. But thank you for the question, because it's so vitally important. You don't want to lose touch. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And great words, Bart, of course, as always. Emily, I guess my 2 cents would be, this is your opportunity to try something new. Like maybe it's inviting your donor saying, hey, we have this really cool, maybe it's a volunteer event coming up, or we have this really cool opportunity for you to engage with the people you're affecting personally, and give them an opportunity to say, like, hey, like I love you. I'm happy. We're helping you. Have them connect more closely with the cause. Maybe at your next event or your next opportunity. This would be an awesome way to say, what, maybe if it's a really big donor and they have a good crowd around them, especially if they're like a high priority donor of yours. Say, hey, maybe this is a good way we can try something new at our next event. Try something big, exciting, fun, and to just attract more people. I recently connected with a organization called the Prison Pet Partnership, and they did some amazing things. So the Prison Pet Partnership basically is they'll connect dogs and people locked up in prison. And, so the dogs rehabilitate the prisoners rehabilitate the dogs. It's very, how do you say it? It's a, cohabitative type thing. Each dog is helping the prisoner and vice versa. And they had this most amazing video, talking about following these prisoners. It was almost like a professional documentary, and they were planning on showing that at their next event. And, just for the DipJar team, when we watched it, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. So I can't imagine how big of an effect that might have on different donors at your next event. Just an idea. Okay, let's see. So Alexandria says the dip and spin sounds awesome. I'm happy to talk about more DipJar related fundraising ideas. Mary asked, do you recommend auction software? Anything in particular, Bart?
Are you referring to software to track your organization's revenue centers? I'm not sure I understand. Auction software, I'm all about pre-promotion and making sure people that are coming to your event know what you've got on the block. And I'll tell you something that's new, and I would have mentioned it earlier, but I don't have enough information, is eventually when we do paddle raises or fund to needs and or live auctions, we're going to let people participate remotely, right? Where we can actually do live auction bidding and take bids remotely, like that big donor that comes to your event every year, but they got to be down in another state attending a wedding, but they want to bid on something. Wow. Well, instead of taking a proxy bid, let's set up the software so that they can participate. Alumni for your organization, let them bid. Let them get a live feed of your live auction and your paddle raise. I think it's amazing what you could raise with that. And that's coming, ladies and gentlemen. That's coming.
Yeah, sorry to butt in there. So Mary just wanted to clarify, it's check-in and check-out software for...
vitally important. I'm a big believer in that. A lot of times mobile bidding companies will do that, but don't forget, that's not important that you remember. I started this business when everything was on paper and all checkout was manual and it wasn't electronic at all. And I'm a big believer that people remember you at your fundraising event two ways. How you greeted them. Welcome. So glad to have you here. We've got this over here and then over there. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for coming. And how you say good night to them. And nothing probably irks somebody more than having to stand in the checkout line for 35 minutes to pick up that one silent auction item they bought and pay for their donation in the paddle raise. So it's how you say hello, how you say goodbye. Make sure that you're thinking about that when you plan your event. And there are so many choices out there. I don't really have the knowledge of what's the best check-in and check-out, but you should be automating that in some way. Plus, you can keep records, better records. You drill down on that data. Great question, Mary. Thank you.
Carrie says they use one cause and then in parentheses BidPal, and they'd like it. Stacy says, do you begin your auctions with lower dollar items just to get the bidding frenzy going?
Absolutely. And there's a strategy that I really like to set not only the starting bid, but also where in the auction. Because if I have 5 items to sell, I want to optimize the top dollar for all 5. And sometimes it makes sense depending on the sequence of where you put them in the auction. But I usually like to start with something, and probably it follows more like a bell curve. You don't save your best for last necessarily, but you build up and you intersperse some of your more appealing ones, at least the ones you think your audience will really like, with other ones. But I start off with something that's going to appeal to the largest portion of your audience. Start that number 1, and I start the bidding low. And believe me, a lot of organizations want to talk to me about opening. Where are you going to start this bid? And I always say, I'm happy. They're always the boss. Don't get me wrong. My employer is always the boss. I'm just the hired help. But I tell them this. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you end up. And so if I can start low, if the value is $1,000 on that first item out of the gate, I might start at $100 because I want to get people in there. And there's psychological studies that have proven that if somebody bids 3 times on that item, they begin to take ownership of it. They begin to say, wait a minute, that's mine. I'm not going to let him take that from me. And that's what we want, is for those people to take ownership of that and bid and bid that thing up higher. So yeah, good question. I love to start low. Silent auction, in terms of setting your values, that's a whole different story. But for the live auction, I like to get people engaged and involved. And you'll be surprised. People will jump in as we go further because they're seeing more slides and they're seeing more reasons why they should be bidding. Thanks for that question.
All right, we're about wrapping up. I'll give you a chance for one more round of questions. And I know, Bart, I think you might have touched about it a little bit in your presentation, but I remember we talked about it when we first chatted, and it gave me some awesome ideas on how to use DipJar for auctioneer events. I think you talked about a little bit how people are talk about how what's a great idea to use DipJar. Maybe it's at the door for people who don't want to donate thousands of dollars. I think you talked about that, and you say it really well. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, sure. I mean, I thought DipJar was a brilliant thing. I wish I'd thought of it. But and I reached out to the company after I saw them at that One Hope United event. I thought it was brilliant because, and here again, at an event that I work, having a DipJar that maybe is $10, depending on your ticket price and the amount of money you raise, you can determine whether it's $1 or $5,000, how much that DipJar is going to take from each card dipped into it. So at checkout, you put a DipJar there, you have your logo on it, and as an afterthought. I mean, if your checkout people are not asking your guests to say, hey, your bill was $428, can we round that up to $500? If they're not asking them that question, the old term round up, well, there's a DipJar. And if they have the urge to give another $20 or $50, they can do that right there, then and there. I think that's a bit of an impulse thing, but I see applications for it in so many other events that I may not be working, I might be attending. Like that, I love food truck ideas. People love food trucks, okay? Or if you're doing something that has a small theme, I'm not talking about a gala, I'm talking about a gathering, maybe your associate board. Brilliant use of the DipJar for that. But I think I love the concept, and I think if you circle back around to Chad or one of his associates at DipJar, they can tell you live where they've seen the best results come. So I'm sure you're going to ask him. Thank you, Chad.
Yep. I guess last couple of things just to follow up that, and then we can close out. DipJar works great when you have someone who, with a smiley face, who's ready to engage with volunteers, asking like, hey, like, awesome, thank you for your $430 contribution. Like, let's round it up. What do you think? Like someone who's ready to give that like last big pitch, about DipJar. And in that situation, it's great. I think in other ways, we've seen, presenters like yourself or event planners like yourself, at the beginning or end or like, somewhere in the middle of the event being like, hey, we have this DipJar, have it on stage, do a nice sample dip, we have it right there at that station across the room. Come ahead and give a little extra donation. If you don't see anything you want to bid on today, we have a DipJar right there, and it's great. So if a lot of you are running those type of events, it's awesome. But again, I think the application for DipJar really is pretty endless. Like there's so many different ideas, and I'm happy to talk about anything. I'm gonna type my email in the comments, but I think a lot of you know where to reach me. Whether it's on the DipJar site, you can also place a call with our fundraising experts, and I'm happy to talk to you. So there's so many different ways. You can download our case study on our site. So if you're interested in learning more, I'm happy to talk. I'll put my email in the comments, and we can connect there if you want. So just to wrap up, thank you very much, Bart, Darfler.
Chad, I want to thank you and DipJar. This has been an honor, and I really hope you folks who tuned in come away with some nuggets that you can put to use for the betterment of your mission, your organization's mission, and your career. Yeah, Best of luck to you, and thank you so much.
Highly recommend working with Bart Darfler. Bart, correct me if you're wrong, you work in Illinois, Indiana, and Florida, if that's correct. I don't know if you work.
Well, I've worked. I'll get a license wherever you want me, but I'm currently licensed in Florida, Illinois, and Indiana.
Awesome.
And I'm looking at work in other states. I've worked in Colorado for the LPGA. I've done a lot of different things, but have license will travel. And I appreciate very much your attention. I wish you the best success. Thank you so much
Great.
for what you
All
do.
right. We are about to approach an even hour. This was an amazing. I think this is our longest webinar yet.
I don't think we want that moniker.
Oh, that's a great marker because everyone seems to be loving it. Awesome engagement in the chat, and everyone seems to be, not wanting to dip away to, if we went a little over. So everybody, I'm going to end this right now. You have the opportunity to auto subscribe to future webinars we have. We have another one planned for next month with I forget his name at the moment, but someone very similar to Bart with some awesome expertise and who has been around the nonprofit world for a while. Thank you, Lonnie.
Not me.
Carrie, thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Bart Darfler. Thank you, everybody. You know where to reach me on our DipJar site. You can talk to a fundraising expert. Talk to us on the chat. Email me. I'll type my email again here. Again, you have the opportunity to subscribe to future webinars we have. All right. We're going to head out. Bart, have a great day, and have a great day, everybody.
God bless you all.
Now keep doing good in the world.
Success. Thank you.